All right, you are
Hey,
good, Bakula. Feel free to take the lead now.
thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again to the Siege Symposium. We're happy to have you here. I do apologize. I'm supposed to be there in person, but I have a cold, so I have to do it remotely. Secondly, we're supposed to model the park equity mapper, but the server was down, so we had a plan B, and we went with the EPA EJ screen tool instead. I also want to apologize if you hear me cough during the presentation. I'm just trying to do the best that I can. So today we're looking at the EPA EJ screen, which is a fantastic environmental justice screening tool. And this tool was launched in February 18, 2022. So I will start the presentation. So the objective of this session is to help the viewers and the users like yourself navigate and interpret the map, able to navigate the tool, know everything about the tool, and also to develop the ability to identify vulnerable patterns and locate areas for resource allocation and intervention. Like I said, the tool was launched February 18, 2022. This is part of the Justice 40 initiative, in which the tool is equity focused. The Justice 40 initiative is aimed at prioritizing underserved communities, such as low-income communities, communities of color, tribal communities, because these communities bear a disproportionate burden of environmental pollution and degradation. So the tool is intended to maximize the impact of federal programs and resources to these targeted communities. What is EPA EJ screen tool? The US Environmental Protection Agency, that's the EPA, created the Environmental Justice Mapping and Screening Tool called EJ Screen 2.1 in order to more effectively achieve the agency's obligation relating to the protection of public health and the environment. So this tool provides the organization, that's EPA, with a nationally consistent data set and approach for combining both environmental, demographic, and socioeconomic indicators or data to provide users with access to and mapping capabilities and let users view environmental and demographic data across the entire nation. So EPA uses the EJ screen to identify areas that may be candidates for additional consideration, policies, or funding. So why the EPA creates an EJ screening tool? This tool was created to help the EPA meet the intent of the federal actions, like I explained before, like the Justice 40 actions and other federal actions of environmental justice in minority populations and low-income populations, and to focus federal attention on the environmental and human health conditions of minority and low-income populations, with a goal of achieving environmental protection, environmental justice for all communities. The tool was also created to develop, to identify potential areas where people are most vulnerable or likely to be exposed to various types of pollutants. It could be air pollutants, it could be water pollutants, it could be pollutants in the soil. And this is to ensure that the programs, policies, and resources are inclusive and take the needs of communities most affected by pollution into consideration. So what is environmental justice? Environmental justice is the equitable treatment of all people and the meaningful participation in the creation, enforcement, and monitoring of environmental laws, regulation, and policies, regardless of their race, color, national origin, or level of income. That's people who have to decide, have the right to decide and make suggestions on impact on things that affect their daily lives. So we look at inequality, equity, quality, and justice. Equity is just the fairness and distribution of resources and opportunities to all. And justice involves establishing of rules and laws to protect the rights of the citizens and is concerned with addressing systemic inequalities. And environmental justice is the fair treatment of all individuals, despite their socioeconomic status, their race, and their distribution in the environment. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I don't, okay. Let me get out of this mode. Okay. So what is the purpose of the EJ Screen tool? The EJ Screen gives users like yourself access to detailed environmental and demographic data for the United States, and allows you to compare different locations. It allows you to compare different states, EPA region, like there's region 1, region 2, region 3. Maryland is part of the region 3, or different counties, different census tract. So looking at the environmental and demographic data, you can compare what is happening in different locations. And the tool also helps you identify people of color and low-income populations. Where are they located? Where are they situated? What are the environmental conditions in those communities? And the tool combines environmental and demographic data. The tool can also be used for educational purposes, grant purposes, community awareness efforts. At the Siege Center, we have GIS workshops where we model the tools to our partners and teach them how to use the different EJ Screen tools available. We have the EPA, the CDC, the CGS, we have the Maryland EJ Screen tool, Park Equity tool. We have the DOT mapper, that's for transportation. So there are so many tools available, and it's part of what we do at the Siege Center to show the public how these tools can be used for community awareness, for grant making, for educational programs. What are the key features of the EJ Screen tools? The EJ Screen tools have 12 environmental indicators. It has 7 socioeconomic indicators, 12 EJ indexes, and 12 supplemental indexes. So the tool has several capabilities, coded maps. That is, the tool is in 5 bins of color, and the darker the color, the higher the environmental injustice in that community. And when we get to the modeling the tool, you will see the different colors and how they have been divided. And the tool has the ability to generate a standard report. You can generate a report from the tool Recently, we did some EJ, what we call environmental justice profiles for our partners. And that's anybody that is interested is part of what we do at the SIG Center. We use the tools like the EPA, EJ Screen tools, CDC tools, and other environmental justice tools, and create a profile for that community. So you can see what exactly is happening in that community. And the tool has the standard reports that we can generate when we choose maybe a particular census tract, county, or city. The CDC report, it has the EPA report, it has the map, the graph that shows, that summarizes what is happening in the various communities. And like I said before, you can also compare different states, what's happening in Maryland, is it different from Virginia? You can see which percentile is higher. In some places, the environmental index may be higher, optimal, and other places it may be the socioeconomic index. So you can compare what is happening in different communities. So environmental indicators. The EJ screen has 12 environmental indicators. That's environmental data. And those indicators include particle matter 2.5. That's the annual average of PM 2.5 level in the air. You also have the ozone, that's the summer seasonal average of daily, excuse me, of daily maximum. The diesel particle matter, that is diesel particle levels in the air toxic cancer risk. All these are air pollutants. These are pollutants that can be found in the air. Some are so small that and it gets easily into the body, into the lungs when we breathe them in. So that's why it's important. For me, I find this tool very useful because I check and see what exactly is happening, what's the characteristics, what is happening in this location. Is there a high percentile of P2 matter? Is ozone high? Is there a high toxic cancer risk? So this tool is a very powerful tool to know what exactly is happening in the community. And the tool also shows the traffic proximity. That is the count of vehicles per major roads and the distance of houses to those major roads. Other environmental indicators include lead paint. When we're talking of lead paint, we are looking at houses pre-1960, looking at houses that are close to RMP facility sites, looking at houses that are in close proximity to hazardous waste sites and Superfund proximity. A Superfund site is an abandoned hazardous waste site, and proximity to a Superfund site can be quite detrimental to the neighborhood. So you look at the 5 kilometer-mile radius and houses that are within that vicinity. It also looks at the water waste discharge for the community. When we get to model the tool, you get to see all these environmental factors and at what percentile they reflect in the different community. Another thing the EPA EJ Screen tool has is our socioeconomic indicators. And there are seven socioeconomic indicators in the EJ Screen tool. That's people of color. People of color are people that list their race as other than white. And we have the low income. Those are household income that is less or twice the federal poverty line. We have the unemployment rate, those that are out of job, linguistic isolation, household and members age 14 and above have difficulty speaking English, less than high school education, under 5, over the age of 64. These are vulnerable populations. So they look at this in combination with the environmental indicators and develop an EJI score or Environmental Justice Index and find out what exactly is happening in that communities and the population that are vulnerable. It's important to mix, to add the demographic and the environmental data because they go hand in hand. For instance, someone that has low income or maybe low school education, that person can be prone to ill health because may not be able to afford health insurance. So all those things are interconnected. And someone that has asthma, living in an environment that there is environmental pollution, will be more affected than maybe someone that doesn't. So it's important to add all the different, both socioeconomic and environmental data to get the full picture of what is happening in those locations. Excuse me. We also have the health indicators, which includes the low life expectancy, heart disease, asthma, cancers, and person with disability. We'll touch more on all these indicators when we are modeling the tool. Also included in the EJ screen tool are climate indicators that have to do with wildfire hazard potential. Recently, we had a lot of wildfire going on, and there was a lot of air pollutants. The air was polluted, there was pollutants in the air. So those are some of the things the EPA look at drought, the coastal flood hazard, those areas that are prone to coastal flood. It also looks at the sea level rise. Critical service gaps. The critical service gaps are food desert. Those are low income population that have low access to food. Have the medical underserved, those that have no primary care, those that are prone to high infant mortality, high poverty rates, that cannot afford medical insurance. Also look at broadband internet, those that are isolated, that have no broadband internet, and transportation access, those that are limited, that do not have a proper means of transportation. So what is the Environmental Justice Index? The Environmental Justice Index is the combination of demographic and environmental factors. That's demographic data, environmental factors at the census block group level. It looks at traffic indicators, low income population, people of color. And to calculate the Environmental Justice Index, that's the EJI score, that the EPA uses one environmental factor with the social economic factor. It does not have a cumulative score. Some environmental justice tool combines all the indicators together to produce a cumulative score, but the EPA doesn't have a cumulative score. It takes one environmental factor and multiplies it with socioeconomic factor to derive an EJ score. Excuse me. So this is what the environmental justice index looked like. That's environmental data and demographic data. So the EJ index identifies areas where vulnerable populations are present, as well as areas with potential high pollutants. So how does the EJ index work? To calculate the specific EJ index for a location, a census tract, the formula is to combine a single environmental factor, for instance, maybe PMB 2.5, and the average of low income and people of color, and multiply these indicators together to develop an EJ score. So if they want to get maybe what is the ozone score of a particular census tract, they'll pick the indicator ozone, then they'll average low income population in that particular area, people of color, and multiply the two indicators, and that will give us the environmental justice score or index for that particular location. EPA EJ screen also have a supplemental index. The supplemental demographic index includes low income population, unemployment, limited English speaking, less than high school education, and low life expectancy. And also, to get the supplemental index score, the supplemental index is combined with a single environmental indicator to display areas with high intersection between these socioeconomic factors and the environmental indicator. So for instance, if you want to calculate the supplemental index for a particular location, a single environmental indicator is used, and they'll average the socioeconomic factors, the low income population, people that are unemployed, the limited English speaking, the less than high school education, and low life expectancy. They will average these 5 indicators and multiply it by the environmental indicator to get the percentile rank score. And all these scores, after it has been calculated, it is now converted to percentile. And the reason why they convert it to percentile is so that they have a uniform score and they can compare different regions and different states. So it first get the percentage. After getting the percentage, it's now converted to percentile, so it can be compared. You now have things like 20th percentile, 30th percentile, 40th percentile. So you can now compare different regions. For instance, in Maryland, a particular indicator may show 80th percentile. In Virginia, it may show 40th percentile. So you can identify that in Maryland, this particular situation is more severe than in the other states. So that is why the scores are converted to percentile. We also have the demographic index. So the demographic index is based on the average of 2 demographic indicators: percentile, low income, and percent people of color. And the demographic index is calculated by looking at averaging the low income and percentage people of color. So how do we navigate the tool? This is the website where the tool can be found. This is the landing page. So when one goes to the landing page, you just click on launch the EPA EJ screen tool. And this will take, the tool will open in another window. And on the left-hand side, you have the layers, the different layers that are in the map: the Environmental Justice Index, Supplemental Index, Pollution and Sources, Socioeconomic Indicators, Health Disparity, Climate Change Data, Critical Service Gap, Additional Demographic, and Threshold Map. This pin allows you to look at, or this icon allows you, so when we get to the tool, I will model the different icons at the top of the map, and you see each function. So this is an example of environmental justice score for air toxic cancer risk. So if you want to get this, you are looking at Baltimore now. This is Baltimore. So if you want to look at what is the score for a particular place, all you do is on the search bar, which is at the top right, you type the location. It can be a street, it can be a county, it can be a city, it can be a state. Just type the location and choose which of the environmental justice index you want to view. So for instance, this is air toxic cancer risk. So this index is a combination of the air toxic cancer risk multiplied by the average of people of color and low income. And that will now give us the score for that particular region. And if you look at the right hand where you have the legend, you see that this tool is color coded. So and depending on the significance, and yet from 90th percentile, it has an orange color. The red from 95 has a red color. And that shows, that's to draw your attention to the potential hazard that is going on in that particular location. Some other tools use different color bins to show the significance of the pollution in the environment. Some will have like a Maryland EJ screen tool. From the 80th percentile, it's already showing the red color to show that, to point people out that there's something happening in this location and make people aware of the challenges of that community. Excuse me. This is lead paint. Also Baltimore. If you look at it, look at the spread of lead paint in the city. Some area where you see, if you look at the legend, there are places they don't have data. Less than 50th percentile is grayed out. 50 to 60th is light gray, dark gray, and the color is intensified based on the severity of the pollutant in that area. I once worked on a project where a group team of us were asked to go into buildings and that are pre-1960 and identify those pipes. It was a state-funded project. Identify pipes that have lead pipes that are running water into the building. And the interesting thing is that a lot of the occupants of those homes, in fact, all of them that we identified that their home have lead pipes running into them, were not aware that lead pipes was supplying water into their home. So this is one good thing about this tool. Engaging with the tool gives an awareness of what is happening in the various communities. So these are just examples which we'll still model later. Then the supplemental index. This is a combination of the tool, the environmental indicators, with population, people of color, low income, low life expectancy, people below 5, and the elderly, people above 64. So it's a combination of 5 demographic factor and one environmental factor, which is average to get the EJI score for the supplemental index. This is the supplemental index for people of color. So for this place, that I read, 95 percentile of people staying there are people of color. Here we look at the demographic index, which we discussed earlier on, and here the climate change data, drought, coastal flood, 100-year floodplain, wildlife risk, flood risk, sea level rise. And looking at the legend, you look at what is happening in those places. Critical factors like the internet connection, medical underserved, food desert. So what are the sources of this data? EPA generates its data from different sources. Some are from the Census Bureau. Some are also generated from the CDC and other sources. So if you look at particle matter, it shows you the pollutants and the source of their data. Toxic hazard. Traffic to proximity is calculated by US Department of Transportation. Lead pipe was gotten by the Census Bureau by the American Community Survey. It's a 5-year summary estimate of lead pipe of houses pre-1960. The Superfund sites, risk management plan facility, underground storage. So all this information can be found on their website. So when you're able to navigate the tool, you can click on the source and get more detailed explanation and information about the pollutants. This shows hazardous waste proximity in Baltimore. You can see it's quite high. Health disparity, life expectancy, heart disease is gotten from the CDC data, asthma also gotten from the CDC data. The climate change data, coastal data. So all these things are there on their website for you to look at in more detail. So demographic information is available to add to EJ screen under an additional demographic button. There is one of the widgets on the EPA EJ screen tool where you can put in additional demographic that you want to see that may not be part of the data that have been used to create the tool. So you can add in population. You have different variables that are available. If you want to see maybe population below 5, you want to see population of color, you want to see percentage Hispanics, different variables are put in education, less than high school, people with high school education, people with higher degrees. So all these variables can be added to the map using the additional demographic widget. This is a different demographic. So when you click on it, you'll be able to look at the different variables and be able to add them to the map. And also this gives a more cumulative view of what is happening. Since the EPA EJ screen score doesn't give a cumulative score, so you can add other data inside, and you'll be able, and it will be represented. And you can get, this is just to get more information or specific information that you want to see displayed on the map. So the threshold map is a combination of various EJ indexes and various supplemental index on the single map. So you can, with the threshold map, you can look at across all the 12 indexes at once. So you can look at the particle matter, ozone, all the indexes. You can look at it at a glance, all displayed on the map. So this is it. We can see all the different indicators. So just click on it and see which one you want to look at. And you can choose the upper level, if it's 80th percentile to 100th percentile. You can look at it either on the states. When you want to look at it, compare state to state or compare the whole US. So this is how to generate a report. You select what the location, be it a census tract, a city, county, block group. Just choose which one you want to see. And if the block group shows more details, because the scores are like accumulations. So if you look at something at the county level, you may not be seeing, you may not have the opportunity of seeing what is going on in the block group level. Because in the census level, we have the state, we have the county, the census tract, the block group, the block level, the city. So if you want to get more minute information, you might go for a lower level and generate your report. This is what the EJ screen community report looks like. It gives you, it summarizes what is happening in that location. So how do you interpret the results? The percentiles are a way to compare one location to the other. So when these results are generated, it's a statistical measurement used to describe the relative position of a particular value. For instance, if a score is in the 80th percentile, it means that only 20th percentile excuse me. So like an easier screen lets you compare a community to the rest of the states, EPA region, and nation by using percentile. So the percentile tells you what percent of the US population has an equal or lower value, meaning less potential for exposure, risk, proximity to certain facilities. Then EJ screen result, if the result in an area is 48% minority and the 69th percentile, this means 48% of the area's population is minority. And that is equal or higher percentile minority. When we get to the website, when we get to the tool, I'll be able to explain further. So a percentile is a measurement or a measure used to indicate the percent of values in a set of data. Percentile is usually range between 0 to 100. So a 0 percentile means there's no, that area is not vulnerable. There's nothing happening in that area. 100% means that area is very vulnerable, that the population there have overburdened by pollution. And 50% is usually the midline. A percentage is an absolute number, but a percentile is a range. So how does the EPA use the EJ screen? Under certain circumstances, EPA employs EJ screen as a first step when thinking about environmental justice, as a first step when creating programs and regulation and initiatives that will impact communities. So the EJ screen, EPA uses the EJ screen to identify areas that may have greater environmental burden and vulnerable population. EJ screen is being made available to the public by EPA as part of the transparency regarding the agency's consideration for environmental justice in its works. On the website, there are a lot of EJ screen resources that is available. There are video tutorials that gives talk more about the tool. They have the technical documents where you can see all the data that was used in the tool, all the information, how they were calculated, how the population, the percentage of population was calculated, how the low-income population was calculated. Everything is documented in the technical information. And one good thing about the tool is that it has downloadable data. That means you can go and download their data from their website, and you can use the data to see, for instance, to see specific locations, and that data can be downloaded into the GIS software, ArcGIS Pro software or ArcMap, any of the SV software, and you can now manipulate that data to see the different states or different what is happening in those communities. So it allows you to see specifics of what is going on. For instance, this is people of low income. This is people of color in Maryland. After downloading the data into the software, I was able to extract the state of Maryland and choose the indicator I wanted to see. So it gives me a clearer view of what is happening in the different communities. This is another one, low-income map of Maryland. And part of what we do at the Siege Center, we help our partners. We offer technical assistance, anybody that wants to produce these maps, either using the EPA, the CDC, any of the EJ screen tools. Is something where we do at the Siege Center. We're happy to help to produce these maps. If you want to look at specific location, it can be at the county level, it can be at the city level. So what are the limitations of the EPA EJ screen? One of the limitations is that data is limited, and some of the data they use is from the census, and sometimes we all know data cannot be 100%. Also, it does not acknowledge all environmental justice related topics. So it doesn't cover all the environmental concern that communities might be facing. So that is my email. You can reach out to us at the Siege Center if you want to develop environmental justice profile, if you want to create maps of your location. It's something we are happy to do. I don't know if there are any questions before we go to modeling the tool. Are there questions?
I don't think there are any questions.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Just want to skip it for a moment. Let me identify where the, okay. So this is the landing page for the EPA EJ screen tool. When you go to their website, it takes you to this page. And you click launch the EJ screen tool. The tool is open on another window. And these have all the layers, the different layers, environmental justice layers, supplemental index, pollution and sources, socioeconomic indicators, health disparity, climate change, critical service gap. So if you click on this, it displays the other indicators. So you can search. Let me see. Excuse me. So I search a particular location, and looking at the legend, it tells me what exactly is going on in that particular place. Picking one of the environmental indicators, if I pick ozone, you see it changes. That means there's higher ozone presence in that location than particulate matter. This is for diesel. The legend is on the right. It explains the values. A toxic cancer risk. So clicking on each of the indicators will give you the EGI score for that particular place. Let's look at This is the air toxic respiratory risk for Baltimore. Let's look at proximity to Superfund sites. You can see a lot of the communities are in close proximity to Superfund sites. Waste discharge is low. Let's look at lead paint in Baltimore. Yeah. Because a lot of the communities are within the 80th percentile and above range. Superfund sites, the same thing. So you can use this tool, this widget in front, and pick any of the indicators you want to see, and the EGI score will be displayed on the map. For the sea level, climate data, the same thing, climate change data, critical service gap, just click on any of the indicators and the score is displayed on the particular location of your choice. So this is the additional demographic. It has different variables for you to choose from. You can just pick on, let's look at the female population, and you click, you want to choose, you want it to be block group or proportional symbol. This is it. So let's look for another indicator. look at married, you can choose the proportional symbol. It gives that data as symbols. So the higher the symbol, the higher the value. So this tool, this widget allows you to add different values onto the map. And lastly, we have the threshold map. This gives you a cumulative view of all the indicators at once. So if I select all and add to the map, it's going to show me the values for all the indicators in that particular location. So I'm choosing 80th to 100th percentile range. So all these areas that are in purple shows these are areas that have a score, EGI score of 80th to 100th percentile in Baltimore.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have some new people who have just arrived. Could you give a real quick recap on what the EJ screen is for the new people who have just come in?
Sure. The EPA EJ screen is an environmental justice tool that the EPA uses. It combines environmental and demographic data to identify vulnerable populations and communities that may be affected by pollution. And some of the vulnerable factors include proximity to pollutants, race, income, economic status, educational qualification, ethnicity, communication barriers, and so forth. Let me just do a quick run through of my slide.
Also, the session wraps up at around 3 o'clock. So I just wanted to let you know that, Ms. Bakula.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be fast. The EPA EJ screen was developed 18th February 2022. It's part of the Justice 40 initiative to identify communities that are overburdened by population. And the EJ screen was developed by the EPA as a combination of environmental and socioeconomic data to derive an EJ score for different communities. And the EJ screen tool is equity centered to ensure that communities have the environmental justice and the burden is reduced in those communities. The purpose of this tool is to identify people of color, potential environmental quality issues, and the tools can also be used for educational purposes, grant writing, and community awareness. It has 12 environmental indicators, 7 socioeconomic indicators. And this slide is available for anyone that is interested. You just see them at the front text. We'll make the slide available. So these are the environmental indicators, the ozone layer, lead paint. These are the socioeconomic indicators, people of color, low income, and employment. Then we have the health indicator as well. We have the climate indicator, critical service gap, those without internet, no medical insurance, no transportation access. And all this data is brought together to derive an environmental justice index. So a combination of the environmental data and the demographic data is average and a score is derived. And the index is a multiplication of a single environmental indicator at the block group level and demographic indicator. This demographic indicator is the average of low income and people of color. Also have a supplemental index which have the low income, unemployment, limited speaking. And to generate the EJ index, as environmental index or score for the supplemental index, we multiply a single environmental factors with an average of all the socioeconomic factors. We also have a demographic index, which is a demographic index score with an average of low income plus people of color. So going to their website, that was where I was. When you click on that website, it brings you to the tool. And on the tool, you can look at all the, when you click on the first widget, shows you all the environmental factors for a particular location. You just type the location and it shows you what is happening in that place. Now we're looking at Baltimore. So clicking on each of them, you get the score. And these scores are in percentile. That is a percentile ranking, ranked from 0 to 100. After the score has, when we start the percentage have been gotten, it is now ranked into percentile. And you can also look at this. This widget allows us to look at the supplemental index as well for the difference for each location. Then this second widget lets you look at, if you want to look at schools in your area, hospitals that are in that location, public housing, subsidized housing. So you can look at different, it gives you different information of what is happening in the community. Then the third one is where you generate your reports. Let me refresh this. So let's look at Baltimore again. Here you can, now generate your report. You can either choose to get a census block or census tract. So if you choose census tract, you click a location and the tract information is generated, excuse me. When you click on the report, excuse me, it takes a while. Now, this is a report for that particular census tract. It gives the community information, the breakdown by race, environmental, it gives you the environmental justice index for the different indicators, supplemental index. It summarizes the data in a table format. And this report can be printed. So I mentioned earlier on what one of the things we do at SIEGE is to create environmental justice profile for communities that want to see what is happening in their area. So we just generate these reports, we add maps, and it creates a profile. And this is one of the assistance we offer to the community. Then these are tools. I particularly like this tool because you can add something. You can add a shapefile. You can do side-by-side comparison.
Excuse me, Ms. Pakula.
Yes?
We need to unfortunately wrap this up, as there is another session at 3 o'clock. So.
Oh, okay. So thank you everyone for
short.
watching. We are available if you need the slides. If you need more detail, just reach out to us and we are happy to help. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the symposium.